Title: The Day We Started Writing. How Cuneiform and Hieroglyphs Changed the World Forever. Description: Take a journey back in time to one of humanity's most crucial inventions. Writing. Explore the world before written language and discover how ancient civilizations in Mesopotamia and Egypt developed cuneiform and hieroglyphs to manage their growing societies. We'll uncover why writing was created, from tracking grain to immortalizing pharaohs, and how this revolutionary technology reshaped human consciousness, paving the way for history, literature, science, and the world we know today. 0 o'clock. Imagine a world without books, without signs, without a single written word. A world where every piece of knowledge, every story, every law existed only in the fragile memory of human beings. This was the reality for humanity for tens of thousands of years. But then, something extraordinary happened. In the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, a revolution began, not with a sword, but with a stylus. This is the story of how we learned to write. Our journey begins around 5,500 years ago in Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Cities like Uruk were booming. They were complex hubs of trade, agriculture, and governance. With this complexity came a new problem. How do you keep track of everything? How many sheep did the temple own? How much grain was paid in taxes? Human memory, for all its wonders, was no longer enough. The ancient Sumerians needed a system, and so writing was born, not out of a desire for poetry or philosophy, but for accounting. Early forms were simple pictography drawing of a head of grain to represent grain, a picture of an ox for an ox. These symbols were pressed into wet clay tablets using a reed stylus. But drawing pictures was slow and couldn't express abstract ideas. Over time, these pictographs evolved. They became more abstract, more stylized, until they were a series of wedge-shaped marks. We call this cuneiform. 2 o'clock. Cuneiform was a breakthrough. The wedge shapes were faster to make and could be combined to represent not just objects, but sounds. Suddenly, you could write down someone's name or a word that didn't have a simple picture, like love or honor. This phonetic element was revolutionary. It transformed writing from a simple accounting tool into a dynamic system for recording spoken language. Scribes, highly trained specialists, became some of the most powerful people in society. They held the keys to knowledge, managing the palace records, temple inventories, and legal codes. For the first time, laws like the Code of Hammurabi could be etched in stone for all to see, creating a new standard of justice that didn't depend on a king's fleeting mood. While the Sumerians were pressing wedges into clay, another great civilization was developing its own magical script along the banks of the Nile. In ancient Egypt, writing took on a more sacred and monumental form. Hieroglyphs. The word itself means sacred carvings, and that's exactly what they were. Carved into the walls of temples and tombs, hieroglyphs were meant to be beautiful, intricate, and eternal. They were the language of the gods and the pharaohs. Unlike the purely functional origins of cuneiform, hieroglyphs were intertwined with art and religion from the very beginning. They could be read as pictures, as symbols for ideas, or as representations of sounds, often all at the same time. This complexity made them breathtaking to look at, but also incredibly difficult to learn and write. Hieroglyphs were used for grand, public inscriptions proclaiming a pharaoh as victory in battle or guiding the soul of the deceased through the afterlife. 4 o'clock. But the Egyptians also had daily needs. You couldn't exactly jot down a quick shopping list by carving it into a stone wall. So they developed a simplified cursive script called hieroglyphs. This was the everyday writing of the priests and scribes, written with ink on papyrus, a reed paper. Hieratic was faster, more practical, and used for everything from administrative documents and letters to medical texts and literary stories. It was the workhorse of the Egyptian writing system, while hieroglyphs remained the majestic script for eternity. For thousands of years, these two systems, hieroglyphs and hieratic, worked in tandem to run one of the longest-lasting civilizations in history. So why did we start writing? The answer, in both Mesopotamia and Egypt, was control. Writing allowed rulers to manage vast empires, collect taxes from millions, and organized massive building projects like pyramids and It allowed merchants to track goods across hundreds of miles, creating complex trade networks. It gave priests a way to standardize rituals and preserve sacred texts. Writing was the operating system for the world's first large-scale societies. Without it, the complexity that we associate with civilization would have been impossible. But the invention of writing did something far more profound than just managed empires. It fundamentally rewired the human brain. Before writing, knowledge was communal and fluid, passed down through spoken word, song, and ritual. It changed with every telling, but a written text is fixed. It's permanent. You can go back to it, study it, analyze it, and build upon it. This stability allowed for the birth of history. For the first time, people could record their past not as myth or legend, but as a sequence of events. 600. This permanence also gave rise to literature. Stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest surviving works of literature, were written down in cuneiform. This tale of a king searching for immortality could now be shared across generations, its words unchanged. In Egypt, scribes wrote down stories of adventure, wisdom, texts, and love poems. The individual human voice could now speak across the abyss of time. Furthermore, writing laid the foundation for logic, science, and philosophy. With written language, you can lay out an argument, you can record astronomical observations and compare them over decades, leading to the development of calendars and astronomy. You can write down mathematical formulas and medical procedures, allowing knowledge to accumulate and be refined. The very act of reading and writing encourages a more analytical, linear way of thinking. It created a separation between the knower and the known, allowing for objective scrutiny. The world was no longer just something you experienced. It was something you could read about and understand. This new technology of the mind spread like wildfire. The idea of representing sound with symbols was too powerful to contain. Over the next few millennia, cuneiform and hieroglyphs inspired countless other scripts. Intelligent traders and merchants needed a simpler system than the hundreds of symbols required for cuneiform or hieroglyphs. Through a stroke of genius, they developed the alphabet, a system where each symbol represented a single consonant sound. 8-0. Oh? This was the Phoenician alphabet, and it was a game instead of years of training. You could learn the basics of reading and writing in weeks. This democratization of literacy spread across the Mediterranean. The Greeks adopted it, adding symbols for vowels, creating the first true alphabet as we know it. The Romans adapted the Greek alphabet to create the Latin alphabet, the very same letters I am using to script this video, and the same ones you see on your screen. Nearly every alphabet in the Western world, and many in the East, can trace its roots back to these ancient innovations. The invention of writing was not a single event, but a long, evolving process that unfolded over thousands of years in different parts of the world. It was an answer to a practical problem, but its consequences were philosophical, psychological, and spiritual. It allowed us to build empires, but it also allowed us to write poetry. It helped us count our grain, but it also helped us contemplate the stars. It separated us from the immediate, oral world of our ancestors and gave us history, science, and the collected wisdom of humanity. Every time you read a book, send a text message, or even just read a street sign, you are participating in this ancient legacy. You are using a tool that was forged in the minds of Sumerian accountants and Egyptian priests thousands of years ago. Writing is perhaps humanity's greatest invention because it is the technology that allows all other inventions to be recorded, shared, and improved. It is the hard drive of our collective memory, the code that runs our civilization. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about the ideas that shaped our world. Let us know in the comments what ancient invention you find most fascinating. See you next time.